Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to a special YouTube edition of Scott Fox After 9. Today, I'm going to be talking about the topic of speed enforcement cameras. This is a great topic that I get a lot of questions about. And if you like the content, hit the subscribe button and you might enjoy the future episodes that are coming out. My guest today is the Mayor of Guelph, Ontario, Mayor Cam Guthrie. Hi, Cam. How are you?
Hi, Scott. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm really glad you could join me because I think you would agree the topic of these speed enforcement cameras has become very controversial.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was kind of controversial even with just the program sort of out there, and then of course it's really become highlighted with the announcement from the province. So fair enough.
Why don't we start at the beginning? Where did these things come from? Because I think a lot of people woke up one day with a couple of tickets in the mail and thought, when did this happen? Who approved this?
Well, it started with the province. The province is actually the one that changed the regulations and initiated the program to allow the program to even begin several years ago. So they they changed the regulations and the legislation at the province to allow them. And at the time, the province actually promoted them, encouraged municipalities to implement them. And there's lots of like ministers at the time and such that came out in favor, saying they help with road safety and keeping vulnerable road users safe, especially like children in school zones and stuff like that. And so many municipalities were like, "Oh, okay," because many municipalities have tried like other methods of trying to slow the traffic down to try to make things safer. They're like, okay, those didn't really work because the province is allowing the program. We'll implement the program ourselves. So that's really the origin of where it came from. So it wasn't like, random municipalities on their own sort of trying to do something, because municipalities always have to have the province give the authority on many of these types of initiatives. So it came from the province.
Okay, so the province allowed you guys to use them and they promoted you guys should use them. And just recently they said you got to stop using them. And
Yeah.
if I'm reading the room right, it seems like people are split on whether or not that's a good idea or a bad idea. And I'm wondering because I did see you send out a number of tweets acknowledging that yeah, they're going to be gone, but here's the reasons that we had them. For anybody who didn't see that social media stuff, could you explain why you think we need these right now?
So, first of all, I would just say, and we can get back to this if this matters, but I, even before the province made an announcement about taking away the cameras, I actually was already saying publicly, I think we might need some tweaks to this program. So we can get to that in a moment. But to answer your question about why do we need them, so I already alluded to the fact that we tried other methods. Like we tried bigger signs and flashing signs, or road bumps, or speed bumps, or things like that. We tried that, and it didn't work to the degree, especially in the school zones, that we were looking for safer streets for everybody in those areas. And as soon as we implemented the speed enforcement cameras, and in Guelph, we only have 12. So it's not like, these are not citywide programs that maybe other municipalities are doing. But only in school zones, only 12 of them. And we have data that completely backs up that the speeds have been reduced. And we have that data because we did checking beforehand, then we did checking while the program was happening, and then we did a review afterwards. And so we have seen sustained change and behavioral change on speeding in school zones over the last year that we've had this implemented and working. And then some of the other stuff that was just really kind of bothering me was just the narrative around this kind of blanket statements from the province that like people are getting tickets for only going a couple kilometers over, and like this is not true. It's not true in Guelph at all. We have the threshold set very, very much higher for really attacking the excessive speeding in these school zone areas. And also that it's a cash grab or it's a tax grab, and like that type of language just doesn't sit well with me. I acknowledge it's a provincial program. They started it. If they want to take it away, okay, fine. It's their program. They have the rights. They can take it away. But as you take it away, don't say things that are inaccurate on the way out the door.
Okay, I mean, I guess deciding whether or not it's a cash grab really comes back down to what their intended purpose is. And I know that you'll make the argument they're for safety in the communities. And I'm happy to hear that you've only got them in school zones. I didn't
Yeah.
know. And there are a lot of municipalities, though, that have put them all over the place in places where they're nabbing a lot of speeders, but there's really no danger to the pedestrian public. And I think that's part of the frustration that people have is it seems unjust that a week later they got a ticket in the mail and you know, they can't even remember where they were going or who they were with at the time. It doesn't seem like they've learned a lesson at that point, and they can't really understand why the camera was there in the first place.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point. Yep, you're never going to hear me, dismiss something that seems valid. I think that seems valid, and that's why in Guelph, and I can only speak for Guelph, is that we had them in the school zone areas. We saw a reduction in speeding. People were very happy with them in those areas, and we didn't do citywide sort of blanket programs everywhere with the speed enforcement cameras that yes, other communities were doing. And so I publicly, maybe I'll get to the point about the tweaks, but like I publicly said before the premiere and the province came out, I was like, I wonder if maybe we could do like a warning first, like to a certain threshold, right? Like if someone's going 30 or 40 kilometers, 50 kilometers over the speed limit anywhere, you probably don't deserve a warning. You deserve a ticket. That's fair. But if it's a first offense and someone can get a warning, I was making the case again before the announcement came out. Like the whole behavioral change is when you go to the mailbox and you get the letter in the mail and you're like, uh-oh. And you rip open the envelope and you open it up and there's the picture of your car and you're like, oh no. And if that picture was a warning though, your behavior, I believe, would change. I still believe that your behavior would change. And so then you're not hitting people in the pocketbooks, but you're achieving the behavioral change that you want. So that was the first tweak that I thought we should maybe be looking at. And then the second one was time of day use. Like is 2 a.m, like on a Sunday or something, like really worth it? And so I like those types of extreme examples, I think are still valid enough to have a discussion about it and to have a review. And I think that's where we wish the province would have gone. Many of the mayors and other cities I've been talking to is that like instead of just throwing it completely out, could we have a conversation about only school zones or warning tickets the first time or time of day use or and then maybe see if those type of tweaks still made sense then instead of doing it the way that they're doing it now.
I apologize. I don't know why my camera just shut off, but I'm going to
That's
try
okay.
again. Um, let's go back to something you said a few minutes ago. You said they were tested and you proved that they work. And
Yeah.
I want to understand that. Did you initially have like a cop out there doing radar and then you compared a machine and then you compared the number of tickets from month to month? How can you say that people's behavior is actually changing in that sense?
So no, we did not have a cop, but we had like devices with our own professional staff, and we're pretty blessed in Guelph. Like the person that was in charge of this program has like a PhD in this in this, so she's wonderful. So I'm sorry I don't know the exact logistics, but there was the program was tested pre and during and post. And all of that data has shown behavioral change and reductions in speeding. I'm sorry, I don't have those like numbers right in front of me. They're not completely off the top of my head, but I believe there was, I think, pretty sure I'm right on this. During the times that the cameras were there, we saw a 45% reduction, I believe, in speed. And then after the cameras were removed, we're still seeing anywhere between a 14 to 19, almost 20% reduction in speed in those areas. So that means those roads are safer for people and for especially for kids and the kids walking to school or biking to school with their parents and such like that.
Did you do any studies into around the cameras? Do people speed up and start speeding again after they know they've made it through the camera without a ticket? And what does it do to the arterial roads as well? Because I hear from folks that are on quiet streets that since they installed a speed enforcement camera on the road adjacent to them, people are coming down their street to get around these cameras.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, but I don't dismiss it. That could very well be valid. I would counter that by saying, okay, take out the speed enforcement camera. And instead put speed bumps down. I can tell you that's gonna the end result will be the same. Probably people will be going around trying to avoid them. And I can tell you where there are speed bumps, people can't stand them because all you hear all day is, and then they slow down, then boom, 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 and then they pick it back off again. And that is at all hours, 24/7. And so sometimes we've actually had in the past communities looking for speed bumps and traffic calming, and they actually come back later and they go, "Can you please remove these things? They're really annoying from a sound perspective." So there could be some truth around people trying to avoid them. I'm not sure. And then your other question was, is there speeding up after sort of the zone where the cameras are? I would submit that there probably is some speeding up afterwards because those community safety zones at schools, they're 30 kilometers an hour. As soon as you leave that zone, it automatically goes back up to 40 kilometers or 50 kilometers an hour. So there's going to naturally be an increase in speed after you're outside of that school zone.
And I'm thinking about the cameras and the communities, and people know they're there and they get their ticket. And you do get a warning that they're coming up. And some people say they didn't see it. Some people say it's
Yep.
all that effective, things like that. I understand the argument, but at the
Yep.
end of the day, you caught them going at least 1 kilometer an hour over the limit. It seems that some areas have different thresholds because I know you said nobody's getting tickets for 4, 5, 6, 7 kilometers
Yeah.
an hour over.
Yeah.
Is that just in Guelph or is that province wide? And why isn't there a uniform set of rules so that people understand when they go to different places that you could be caught if you're going, say, 5 over the limit?
Yeah, so I 100% agree with you. And anyone that has that argument, I 100% agree with you. I don't know about what the thresholds are in other cities, but I do believe that that is a legitimate argument. And I bet you any money that there has been communities that have had different thresholds. And I'll tell you right now, if that kind of threshold, that low threshold was in my city, I would have freaked out as the mayor myself, anyways. So I think uniformity across the province is another one of those points that we can be talking to the province on to say, like, hey, we all agree. I certainly would that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kilometers over is not worthy of, I think, getting that ticket. But there should be some kind of threshold that we could all agree upon that when you're in a school zone, you do need to slow down, and there can be consequences to not slowing down, and we should have that uniformity across the province. That's a very valid discussion to have.
Was there some sort of an emergency all of a sudden when it came to the need to put these cameras in? Because it does seem like all of the municipalities went all in at the same time here, and the cameras have been popping up in record numbers, especially for people who commute between different cities. So I'm wondering, was there a sudden rash of kids getting hit by cars or elderly people near misses, or what happened to create this all of a sudden these zones aren't safe without cameras?
I think that's a great question. I think it'd be a combination of a few things. One would be the fact that the province allowed it. So there, that's going to obviously stir the pot a little bit of municipalities to say, like, oh, we've tried for a year or 5 years or 10 years to slow down traffic in these areas. And this is now a new tool. Maybe we should try this new tool. I would also just submit that, and any mayor or any city councilor would, I know, validate this. One of the biggest complaints, other than potholes and property taxes, is speeding. And we get those complaints all the time from school boards, from the principals and the teachers, from the parents, always around those schools. It is a constant complaint. And so looking to try to help with that is something that we wanted to see if that tool would use, because the other tools we were using maybe weren't producing the same results. The final thing I would say is there was a real big push over the last maybe 5 to 10 years for what's called Vision Zero, which is a policy perspective of trying to have zero injuries, zero deaths in regards to pedestrians and vulnerable road users. And what has happened is many cities have adopted Vision Zero. And that really compels us to relook at safety measures on our roads, especially around schools, to try to do whatever we can to eliminate those conflicts. And when the tool of speed enforcement cameras came in, that was something that kind of aligned with the Vision Zero program.
Okay, understood. Now let me get to, I think, the most controversial part of this whole thing is the money. It seems like people are getting charged a lot of money for something that may or may not have happened a week and a half ago. And they don't like these tickets they're getting in the mail because they do seem like an excessive amount. That's just
Yeah.
foreign into the city if these cameras are giving out the kind of tickets that the premier says they're giving out. And he says it's in the thousands. Where does all that money go? And do you guys budget for that? Or is this just slush fund money? Or how does it work? Because there are those who feel that this is a tax grab. It's City Hall grabbing more money from taxpayers through this means. So since you're taking it, what do you do with it?
Yeah, so great question. And again, I can only speak for Guelph. And when we implemented the program, it's just been a couple of years in Guelph. We actually, when we gave approval for the program, we actually had a counselor at the time, and I'm appreciative of her saying, like, wait a second, where's this money going? What's it going to be used for? And we decided to make a policy around that. So we have to have the money go to a reserve account specific for transportation, road safety initiatives, including infrastructure. So in Guelph, we've actually built a couple of pedestrian crosswalks, signalized crosswalks, through the money that has come through this program. And we have two or three other ones that are coming on stream, again, funded by the program. So I can't speak for other communities, but we specifically made the fines that are brought in from the speed enforcement cameras go right back directly to to safety reductions and like safety initiatives on our roads. And I think that's the right way to do it, to make sure that it is earmarked for those types of things. And then I would just kind of counter again this whole like it's a tax grab. It's not a tax grab. Like taxes are applied across every home or every business in a city. When you break the law at a certain threshold within a school zone and you're speeding, that's not a tax grab. That's a fine, and you get hit with that fine. And that's where the behavioral change has actually worked within those zones. So I just counter that it's a tax grab. And if I could just one extra point on that is that if the program is completely eliminated like the province wants to do, which again, it's their right. But if that happens, the province has said, well, we're gonna provide municipalities with funds to help with bigger signs or other infrastructure to help with road safety. Well, guess how that's getting paid, everybody? Taxes. There's my dad taught me a long time ago. There's only one taxpayer, and so there's only one wallet. So instead of these programs and an infrastructure being initiated through revenue from people breaking the law, now it is going to be the taxpayers actually paying for all of this capital infrastructure that's going to be outlaid across the province.
But I mean, that infrastructure does serve everyone as well. It's not like it only serves the speeders. Do you understand what I mean?
Yes, to a certain extent, but a lot of yes, I do understand what you're saying. But I would suggest that a lot of the infrastructure that the province has kind of doled out to say like, oh, you can get these signs or you can get these speed bumps we've already done. We already got all that. We already have it all. So it's going to be interesting to see like what more can the province actually submit to us to try to use. I'm open for that, by the way. I'm totally open for that conversation to see what they have. I would also suggest too that there's the capital side and the operating side. So even if the province says, well, here's a bunch of money for infrastructure for the capital, that's great. But then what happens to the operating costs? Like those eventually have to also be paid for by the municipal property taxpayers.
Understood. Okay, so it seems like either way, our roads are about to get a lot safer. Should we expect this in every school zone, like hundreds and hundreds of them across Ontario, or is there just ones that are higher risk than others? And what kind of a message does that send to parents if they live in one of the areas where these are needed?
Yeah, so in Guelph, we actually specifically had the cameras go to the areas where there was warranted excessive speed. So it wasn't sort of nilly-willy. You would just kind of throw one there and throw one at this school and one at this one and not at this one. So we actually put them in the areas where there was tracked excessive speed. And then finally, I would say there's kind of like primary schools and then high schools, right? So, one could argue, and I would be open for the conversation, that maybe it should be in the primary school areas and not just high school. Not to say that those kids aren't worthy of free of injury or worse, but maybe it's just primary. Maybe it's both. And keep in mind too, some of these schools are in residential areas, which is a little bit easier to do with some of the infrastructure the province might want to try to implement. But if we have a high school on an arterial road in our city, it's kind of hard to put speed bumps down in front of those schools. You can't have speed bumps on an arterial road.
Totally understand. If these cameras are to stay, if some sort of a deathbed reprieve is granted by the premier, would you support taxpayers or drivers, sorry, having the ability to challenge these tickets? Because right now, I think one of the things people feel is unfair is they got this ticket and they'd like to confront their accuser. They'd like their day in court, and they're innocent until proven guilty. But there's no option to fight it there in a lot of cases. Do you think people should be able to challenge these tickets in front of a judge or JP?
Oh, 100%. Like that's just an overall personal feeling of mine. You should always have your ability to challenge that. And then I would just actually say, again, back to Guelph. I guess we're doing it right here. There are some cities that have it set up where the mail comes to you. You got your picture in the mail, and you're getting fined. And then if you want to challenge that, it's a provincial. It goes to a provincial offense, and it's provincial court, and that takes it out of the municipality's hand. It's completely between the person that has the fine and the province. But in Guelph, we have what's called an administrative system. And we have that for some other of our kind of local bylaw tickets as well. And what it does is it allows actually citizens in town to actually come and speak to somebody at City Hall and have the administrative delegated authority to actually look to kind of work on that ticket. The person could still say, no, you deserve the ticket and that's it. But that speeds up the process. It makes it more localized. The discretion is given to the local person instead of having to go to some provincial sort of jurisdictional, place to try to figure it out. So that is another option. And I would just also suggest that when we did it as an administrative system that we're moving towards, it actually enables us to keep more of the revenue to stay in the city to go to those road safety initiatives as well. So currently we have about 68% of our revenue stay in the city to go to these initiatives. But moving to the administrative system doesn't, it helps with the customer service side, but it also keeps more of the revenue to go to more programs in the city.
Where does the rest of the money go? There's a story out there, and I don't know if it's true or not, that the company who provides these cameras is actually the ones monitoring them, and they just send you a royalty or they send you a percentage. Is that how these cameras work?
I'm not quite sure about the process that you just said there, so I don't want to completely say one thing or another. I'm not trying to dodge it. I just honestly don't know. But what I do know is that 68% of the revenue that comes in stays in the city, and the 32% is divided by the vendor who operates the system, who installs the system, repairs the system, calibrates the system based on the policies we have at our municipalities. And then there's also a processing center that's in Toronto that a ton of the municipalities have all of them processed and checked at a processing center in Toronto. And there's some of the money that has to go to fund the administration of that as well. So that's where that 32% is divvied up, but I'm not quite sure what the percentage is all around that. But I'm more concentrating on the 68% that stays and moving to that administrative system, even more than 68% that was going to stay in the community and go towards those road safety initiatives.
Understood. Okay, one more thing. I am
Yeah.
a compromise guy. I love it when two people who may disagree on an issue can sit down and talk like you and I just did. So I
Yeah.
did this conversation and I certainly learned a lot. So I want to thank you. But
Yeah.
one of the things I heard from you today is there's some room here to compromise. You
Oh,
do
yeah.
with time of use. You do
Yeah,
agree with restricting them to school zones any or specifically, and
yeah,
you agree that there should be a minimum threshold and it should be consistent across the province and known.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if there's some compromise there, and I think if that's what we're talking about, most people could probably get behind these cameras if it's very limited in their use.
yeah.
It really seems like municipalities haven't wanted to compromise until the premier made a big deal of this. I mean, we could have agreed on these things that are common sense years ago, and there probably wouldn't be this kind of uproar and backlash over the cameras. Where was the
Yeah,
compromise a few months ago when people were getting real angry before Premier Ford stepped in?
yeah, I think that's a really fair question too. I think, I don't know. I think I would say because the data was showing that there was safer streets, that the cameras were working, that I can only speak for myself, that it's like I understood the arguments that were coming, but I also saw the other side of like safer streets. The kids are safer, the parents are appreciative, the schools are appreciative. And like any elected official, you're always going to get this push pull of difference of opinions on different programs and services that we're providing. I would also suggest that it was sort of a new thing for us only in the last couple of years. And so part of it for me was like, the last couple of years, almost like a trial run. Like, is it working? Is it not? And then I would say that I kind of came to the conclusion myself, as I said, even before the province made the announcements, that I felt like, okay, we've had a little bit of time on this. I think there are some issues that do need to be addressed, and maybe that's where those compromise positions could be adopted by the province and agreed upon by a vast majority of sort of people that could say, hey, if it's these limited scopes, time of day, warnings, things like that, the things that I suggested, maybe we can get to a point where we could keep them because, again, the data does suggest that it works.
Okay. And whether they're gone or they stay, you seem very committed to the money that they generate will be used for future road safety initiatives. If they
Yes.
could you at least commit to that? And do you think other mayors would agree with you? Or is this just going to become general revenue?
Oh no, like that's so we as I said, we did that in Guelph from the get-go. So it's never compromised on that. I don't even need to make a commitment to that because it's a policy. It's a council approved policy. So it's not like I would have to somehow recommit to something that's already being done. But you know what? I think if there's going to be tweaks and there's other cities across the province that maybe aren't doing some of the things that we're doing, I would actually speak up pretty boldly about that to say, like, no, there has to be uniformity across the province. We have to have it equal across the board. If you're moving from, or not moving, if you're driving from one community to another, it should be the same. There should be the same way that it works wherever you go. And I would speak up pretty loudly if any municipality was trying to counter that. They're like, oh no, I want it to be different in my city and different here. You're going to have a patchwork of different things across the province. I am not a believer in that at all, and I would speak up against that if any municipality tried to change it.
Well said. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this chat, and I hope that the listeners did too. Like I said, I think it's great when two people can talk out an issue and have that civil discourse. So thank you very much for your time today.
Oh, anytime. I'll talk about whatever the heck you want. It's all good.
I'm going to take you up on that, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Very much. That is Guelph Mayor Cam Guthrie talking about speed enforcement cameras on a special edition of Scott Box After 9.